Welcome to our channel. Today's tale is Sophie hired a fake fiancé to stop her family's constant pressure about marriage. Everything was going as planned until her fake fiancé, Jake, started acting strange. He kept his past hidden, and when Sophie overheard a phone call, she realized something wasn't right. Jake's life was filled with secrets, and now Sophie was caught in the middle of it. His dangerous past was closing in, and it could destroy everything Sophie had worked so hard to protect. Will she be able to walk away safely? Or will the truth about Jake change her life forever? Let us know where you're watching from. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories. In a small town in California, there lived a young woman named Sophie Williams. Sophie was smart, hardworking, and independent. She had a cozy little house, a job she loved at the local bookstore, and a group of close friends. But despite all that, Sophie had one problem. She couldn't stand the pressure of her family's expectations. Every year, Sophie's family would host a big gathering for Thanksgiving. They would invite all the relatives, friends, and neighbors to come over and celebrate. Everyone would talk about their jobs, their marriages, and their kids. And every year, Sophie's mom would ask the same question: "When are you going to settle down and get married, Sophie?" Sophie didn't mind being single, but her mother's constant questioning made her feel like something was wrong with her. Her cousins were all married with children of their own. Sophie felt like the only one left out. Then one day, Sophie had an idea. If she could fake being engaged, maybe her family would stop asking about it. She didn't want to get married for real, but if she could just pretend to have a fiancé for the Thanksgiving dinner, maybe her mom would finally stop pestering her. Sophie quickly went online and found a service that offered fake fiancé packages. For a small fee, she could hire someone to pretend to be her fiancé for a few days. The man would attend family events, meet her relatives, and act like a loving fiancé. Sophie thought it was the perfect solution. She filled out a form and arranged for the man to arrive a week before Thanksgiving. A few days later, Sophie received an email with the details of her fake fiancé. His name was Jake Harris, and he was a professional actor who had done this kind of work before. Sophie was relieved. Jake's photos looked friendly and trustworthy, and she was sure he would do the job well. When Jake arrived at Sophie's house, he looked just like his pictures, tall with short brown hair and a warm smile. He was dressed in a neat button-down shirt and jeans, and he seemed friendly and easygoing. Sophie felt a little nervous, but she was also excited. This was going to work perfectly. "Hi, Sophie," Jake said with a smile. "It's nice to meet you. I hope I'm what you were expecting." Sophie shook his hand and smiled. "Hi, Jake. Yes, you look great. Thanks for doing this. I just need you to pretend to be my fiancé for a few days. My family's really, well, they're a bit much when it comes to marriage." Jake chuckled. "No problem. I can play the part. Don't worry, we'll make it believable." Over the next few days, Sophie and Jake spent time together, preparing for the big Thanksgiving dinner. They practiced how to act like a couple, talked about their fake relationship, and even went shopping for clothes to wear to the dinner. Sophie found herself laughing and enjoying Jake's company more than she expected. But as the days went on, Sophie started to notice something strange about Jake. He was always careful with his phone, never leaving it out in the open. Sometimes he would get quiet when Sophie asked him questions about his past. Sophie didn't think too much of it at first. After all, they were just pretending to be engaged. But there was something about Jake that made her curious. The big day finally arrived. Sophie was nervous, but she was also relieved. Everything was set. Jake was dressed in a sharp suit, and Sophie wore a lovely dress. They arrived at her family's house where her mom and relatives were already busy preparing food and setting the table. "Mom, this is Jake," Sophie said, introducing her fake fiancé to her family. "Jake, this is my mom, Dad, and everyone else." Jake smiled and shook hands with everyone. He was polite, charming, and seemed to fit right in. Sophie's mom looked at them with a big smile. "Oh, Sophie, I'm so happy for you," her mom said. "I can't wait for the wedding. Have you set a date yet?" Sophie blushed but smiled. We're still figuring that out." As the evening went on, everything seemed to be going perfectly. Jake played his part well, holding Sophie's hand, talking about their future plans and laughing along with the family. Sophie couldn't help but feel a little relieved. Her mom wasn't asking any more questions about her love life, and the dinner was going smoothly. But then, as the night wore on, something unexpected happened. Sophie's aunt, Aunt Carol, who had always been a little nosy, asked Jake a question that caught him off guard. "So Jake," Aunt Carol said, raising an eyebrow, "where did you meet Sophie? Was it in college? Or maybe through friends?" Jake hesitated for a moment, his smile fading slightly. We met through mutual friends," he said quickly. Aunt Carol wasn't convinced. "Really? Because I heard from someone that you were living in New York a few months ago, and I thought you were, well, never mind. It's not important." Sophie felt a chill run down her spine. She hadn't heard Jake mention anything about New York. In fact, she had never asked him much about his past. But now she was starting to feel uneasy. After dinner, Sophie found Jake in the hallway, talking quietly on his phone. She could only hear bits of the conversation, but what she heard made her stomach drop. "I can't keep doing this," Jake said in a low voice. "She's starting to get suspicious. I need to find a way out before it's too late." Sophie froze, her heart pounding. What was Jake hiding? Why was he acting like this? Sophie's heart raced as she stood frozen in the hallway, listening to Jake's conversation. She didn't know what to do. Part of her wanted to confront him right away, but another part of her feared what she might learn. She didn't want to believe that the charming man she'd hired to pretend to be her fiancé could be hiding something that could ruin everything. After a few moments, Jake hung up the phone and turned around, his face going pale when he saw Sophie standing there. "Sophie, he started, but Sophie cut him off. "What was that about?" she asked, her voice shaky. "Who were you talking to? And why did you say, 'I need to find a way out before it's too late'?" Jake's face turned red, and he quickly looked away. "It's not what you think, Sophie. I didn't mean for you to overhear that." Sophie's eyes narrowed. "Then what exactly did you mean?" "I thought we were just pretending, Jake. Why are you acting so strange? Why are you hiding things from me?" Jake sighed deeply, rubbing his forehead. He seemed torn, like he wanted to tell Sophie the truth, but didn't know how. "Look, Sophie," he began, his voice softer now. "I never planned to get caught up in all this. I was hired for a job, and I've been doing this for a while. But things got complicated, and I didn't expect to start liking you." Sophie's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean, liking me?" "I'm sorry, Sophie. I didn't mean to lead you on or make this harder than it needed to be," Jake said, taking a step closer. "I've done this kind of work before, pretending to be someone's boyfriend or fiancé for a short time. It's always been just a job. But when I met you, I didn't expect to care. I didn't expect to start feeling something real." Sophie's mind was spinning. "So you weren't actually interested in me at first?" Jake shook his head. "I didn't know you. I was just doing a job. But then over these past few days, I started to realize that you're different. You're smart, kind, and, well, amazing. I didn't expect to develop feelings for you. I didn't want to complicate things, but I can't lie anymore. I'm sorry." Sophie stood there, speechless. She had hired Jake to be her fake fiancé for just a week, and now he was telling her he had feelings for her. It was too much to take in. Her mind was a whirlpool of confusion. "But the phone call?" Sophie asked, her voice trembling. "Who were you talking to? What's going on, Jake?" Jake hesitated, his eyes darting to the floor. He looked like he didn't want to say it, but Sophie's eyes were full of suspicion, and she needed answers. I, I'm in some trouble, Sophie," Jake admitted. "The truth is, I'm not just an actor. I used to work for a company that got into some shady business. There's money involved and things went wrong. I've been trying to keep my past hidden, but it's catching up with me. The people I used to work for, they're looking for me." Sophie felt a cold wave of fear wash over her. She had hired Jake as a fake fiancé, but now she realized she might have hired someone with a dangerous past. Someone who could bring trouble to her door. "Are you in danger?" Sophie asked quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. Jake nodded, looking guilty. "I didn't want you to be dragged into this, Sophie. I thought I could handle it, but now, I'm afraid that my past could put you in danger too. If those people find out you're involved with me, I can't let them hurt you." Sophie took a step back, her mind racing. She had no idea that things could get so complicated. She had hired Jake to solve one problem, pretending to be her fiancé. but now she was caught in a much bigger mess. I didn't ask for this, Sophie said, her voice shaky but determined. I just wanted to stop my mom from asking about my love life. I never imagined it would turn into something like this. You have to leave. I don't want to be part of whatever trouble you're mixed up in. Jake's eyes widened, and he stepped forward, reaching for her hand. Sophie, please. I never meant for you to get hurt. You don't deserve any of this. But I need your help. I don't have anywhere else to go. I can't leave until I'm sure they won't find me. But I don't want to put you at risk. Sophie pulled her hand away from his, feeling a surge of anger and confusion. She had hired a fake fiancé to help her with a simple problem, and now her life felt like it was spiraling out of control. I don't know what to believe anymore, Jake, Sophie said, her voice trembling. I need time to think. I can't just ignore what you said. I need to figure out what to do next. Jake's face fell, and he nodded in understanding. I understand. I'm sorry, Sophie. I'll give you space. But please, don't make any decisions without knowing the whole truth. There's more I need to explain. I'll stay away for now, but I promise I'll be here when you're ready to hear everything. Sophie watched as Jake walked away, leaving her standing in the hallway, her thoughts racing. She had never imagined that hiring a fake fiancé could lead to something so dangerous. Now she had to decide whether to trust Jake, and if doing so might put her life at risk. Sophie sat in the quiet of her living room, her mind spinning. She couldn't stop thinking about Jake's words. He was in trouble, real trouble, and somehow she had gotten caught up in it. She didn't know whether to feel sorry for him or be angry. After all, he had deceived her into believing he was someone he wasn't. But the more she thought about it, the more she realized that Jake wasn't a bad person. He had been honest with her about his past, and he clearly cared about her. But she couldn't ignore the fear that gripped her heart. Sophie had never dealt with danger, and now it seemed to be knocking on her door. Hours passed and Sophie paced back and forth, unable to make up her mind. She had always been someone who avoided confrontation, someone who liked to keep things simple. But this situation was anything but simple. Could she trust Jake? Should she help him, even though he might put her in danger? She finally decided she needed to talk to him, get the full truth before making any decisions. Sophie grabbed her phone and texted Jake, "We need to talk. Meet me at the bookstore at 10. At 10 p.m., Sophie stood in the quiet bookstore, waiting for Jake. The store was empty, the lights dimmed, and the only sound was the soft hum of the air conditioning. Sophie's heart was racing, but she knew she had to face Jake. She had to hear everything. When the door opened, Jake stepped in, his expression serious but relieved. He looked like he had been through a lot, and for a moment Sophie felt a pang of sympathy. "I'm glad you called me," Jake said, his voice calm but tense. "I know I've put you in a tough position, Sophie, but I'm glad you want the truth." Sophie nodded. "I don't know what to think anymore. I need to know everything, Jake. Why are these people after you? What kind of trouble are you in?" Jake sighed and leaned against a bookshelf, running a hand through his hair. "I used to work for a company that handled high-stakes investments. We were involved in some shady deals. Nothing illegal, but definitely morally questionable. The company went under, and I left before it all fell apart. But the people I used to work with, they didn't like that. They want me to pay for leaving, and now they're looking for me." Sophie swallowed hard. "And what does that have to do with me?" "I never wanted you involved, Sophie," Jake said, stepping closer. "But when you hired me, I didn't think things would get this complicated. They know I've been pretending to be your fiancé. They think I'm hiding out with you. And if they find out where you are, they could come after you too." Sophie felt a chill run down her spine. She had no idea what Jake had been through, but now she understood the danger. She had to make a choice. "Jake, I can't get involved in this. I don't want to be in danger," Sophie said, her voice trembling. "I hired you for a fake fiancé, not for a real problem. I don't know how to help you." Jake's face softened, and he reached out to her. "I understand. I never wanted to drag you into this. But I promise, I'll do whatever it takes to protect you. I don't want you to be hurt because of me." Sophie looked into Jake's eyes. She had started to care about him, more than she ever thought she would. But she also knew that she couldn't let her feelings cloud her judgment. Her safety came first. "I think you should go." Sophie said softly, her voice cracking. For both our sakes. You're right. I don't know what kind of danger I could be in, and I can't risk that. Jake nodded, his expression sad but understanding. I get it, Sophie. I'll leave. But please, just know that I never wanted to cause you any harm. I really do care about you. Sophie's heart ached as she watched him walk out of the store. She didn't want to say goodbye, but she knew it was the right thing to do. She had to protect herself. The next few weeks were difficult for Sophie. She kept looking over her shoulder, expecting someone to show up at her door. She went about her daily life, but there was a constant nagging feeling that something was still wrong. Jake had left, and she hadn't heard from him since. She hoped that he was okay, but she couldn't shake the worry that he was still in danger. Then one day, Sophie received a letter in the mail. It was from Jake. She opened it slowly, her heart pounding as she read the words. Sophie, I can't thank you enough for your kindness and for giving me the chance to explain myself. I know I can't undo the past, but I want you to know that I'm doing everything I can to stay out of trouble. I've left town and I'm starting over. I hope one day we can meet again under better circumstances. Until then, take care of yourself. You deserve nothing but the best. Jake. Sophie folded the letter carefully and placed it on the table. She didn't know what the future would hold, but she knew that she had made the right choice. Sometimes the right thing wasn't the easiest thing, but it was always the most important. She might not have a fiancé, and she might not know what love would look like in the future. But Sophie knew one thing for sure. She could handle whatever came her way. She had learned that trusting herself was the most important thing of all,